Hi everyone, welcome to another LaTeX tutorial. In this video, I'm going to show you how to left align tables such as this. All right. So I will show you a couple of tricks that you can use to make your life easier when it comes to creating left align tables like this. So let's get started. So first of all, I will create a new LaTeX file. I'll save it. I need to save it with an appropriate. Now I'll just say left align tables. All right, now you can proceed. Let me also say that you can run the LaTeX codes online. So for beginners, you can just look at Overleaf. Just visit the link that I'll share in the description box, and then go to Overleaf and you can write your codes online and also reproduce what we are doing. So that's it. I will shift back to my offline tool, which is Text Studio. Okay, now we will start. So first of all, let's create the table first, and then let's look at how we are going to left align it. So I'll have to initialize my documents here. So I'll say slash documents class. I'll use 10pt. I'll say article. Then I'll move to the next line. So here, because we are going to do some, we are going to add some custom settings, we need to indicate that as well. Now, if you look at this table here, all right, we've aligned the table itself, and we have also aligned the caption, which is here. So everything has been aligned to the left-hand side. And so that means we need to customize the caption and also customize the table. So for captions, if you want to add your own settings, you need to introduce that package. So we say slash use package, and we'll indicate caption. Then we will begin the documents with this command and then end the document. So in this block, we are going to put whatever we want here, i.e. the tables. All right. Now let's create our table. And so to create a table, you have to enable the table environment. And by the way, for tables, if for a beginner, I have an introductory video on creating tables. So just check the description box and watch that video, and then you get started with creating tables. All right. Now let's proceed. So we have our table, which we are here to create. So we say slash begin table. Then we bring a placement option. So I will just use H. You can always modify them. So that's what you need to note. And then I'll go to slash end table. All right, now we have this done. So in between is where we'll put in our tables. And so before we start with the table, we need to also indicate the caption. All right, so here I'll say slash caption. Here, indicate the text. So you can put any text. So here I'll just say my table. All right, so just a caption. So once you are done with this, then we are ready to create the table itself. So let's create a table. And by the way, you can also run this just to see what is happening. Okay, so if you're a beginner, I will encourage you to test your codes line by line, or after you've entered a number of them, test it to make sure it's working, so that you'll be able to also identify issues if new changes are made. So let's run this just to be sure. And then let's build and view. Okay, just to be sure. Okay, so we have the caption created. So we are gradually going to do the modifications. All right. Now let's add a table. So we will still go according to this table here, the design here. So here, if you look at the table, we have 3 columns. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 rows. Okay, the first row is a header. So it's also included. And so we will need the number of columns first, and then the number of rows. We will incorporate them later. So we will say slash begin tabular. That's what we need first. Then we now have to indicate the columns. Okay, so here I'm giving you the bare minimum to get started. You can also do your own modifications. That's fine. All right. So after you are done with this, then you bring another curly bracket, then you specify the columns. So the columns, when you are specifying the columns, you also need to indicate how you want the text to be aligned or to be placed or to be justified. Let me just use any of these. All right. So if you want your text to be centered, you use C, left L, right R. Now let's all use center C. So it's going to be C, C, C. All right, that's for the tabular, the columns. So here we have 3 columns. That's what we have here. And we want the text to be centered. Now, in this table, you also see that we have lines, okay, separating each of the columns, and also on the left and right edges, okay. And so we will need to indicate that with a vertical line here, 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 and then here. All right. Now these spaces, you can close them just to make your table look neat. So that's what we have for the table. Okay, the design, the columns. Now in the next line, what we want is 2 starts. So we will start with drawing a horizontal line. So we say slash H line. Okay, so the line here is what we are drawing. The very first horizontal line here, that's what we are drawing. So take note of that. Now with the vertical lines, we have already done it using these ones here, so it's good. Now we want to add the first row, which is what? Name, age, position. And so we'll put that here. So we say name. Now this is for one column. So when we are moving to another column, we start with the end character, which is shift 7. All right. Then we add the next column, which is age. The same thing applies to the next column, which is position. So this gives us a complete record. Now, in moving to another record, we need to tell LaTeX that we are done with this record. And so how do we show this? We show this by indicating a double backward slash to tell LaTeX that we are done and we are moving to another line. So in the next line, we are going to draw. So we say slash H line to include a line. Then the next line, we indicate the next record, which is here. So we have Michael 32 manager. And so here it becomes Michael the 32 will come, but we need to bring an end first here. And we say 32 and manager. We bring our double backward slash H line. Then we add the next record. So the next record is what? Elizabeth 27 secretary. So we just type it here. Elizabeth 27 secretary. We end it. It should be consistent. Another line, and then the next record, which is the last record, is what? John 30 analyst. So John 30 analyst. We end it. In the next line, another horizontal line. So this completes the table. Then we have to end this block. We started with slash begin, so we have to end it. So it becomes slash end tabular, we need to end it. So this is one block, and we also need to make sure the slash begin table, we've ended it, which is here. All right, that one is here. And then we also need to have our begin and end document, which is here. All right, so we have it here. All right, so that's what you need to know. And by the way, I already have the LaTeX code. So for those who want the code, you can check the description box for the codes. Okay, there's a link that you can use to get the codes. All right, so this becomes our table. Now let's run this and let's make sure everything is okay. Okay, great. Now if you look at this table here, you will realize that the table itself has what? Shifted to the left hand side, which is what we want, but the caption itself is still centered. All right, so we will have to make sure we also left align this caption. We need to also bring it to the left hand side. So this is where the customization comes in. And so what we need to do is to change the setup for caption. You know, caption has a default setup, which we will need to modify. All right, and so we will need to add that in the documents just before we start the table environment, the main table environment. We need to add that here. All right, up here. Right, so here what I will do is to say this slash caption setup, and now indicates what's object, the type of object. So this is for table. Okay, so I'm modifying the options for table captions, and then I'll bring a curly brackets. I'll say skip equals 0pt. So the skip is used to set a vertical space. So if you want to include a vertical space between the caption, this one and this one, then you can modify. There's a default value which is used, but if you don't want any space, then you just indicate and say 0pt points. All right, now for length measurements, there are different options which there are a lot of options which is available in LaTeX. So just check the description box for instructions on how to get that document. All right, now we are done with the setting for vertical space. Then we also have to disable another option, which is a single line check. Okay, by default it is on, and that is why the caption is centered. So if you want it to be on the left hand side, then we say equals off. All right, now let's run this. Good. So when you run it, you see that what it is, what on the left hand side. Okay, it has been aligned nicely for you. Okay, so that's it. Now let's do this. I'll just put in some random text here before the table itself. I'll just say hi there, this is my latest document. All right, I'll just run this, just some text to be above. Okay, so now you see what we have here. Now if you look at this here, all right, this is a text. Let me just do it here. I'll just do it here for you. Now if you look at this here, if you have some text originally and then you see these things, then there are other things you can also do just to justify, okay, what you are doing. All right, now this is just a text. If it were to be a section, let's just say slash section left align table, because sometimes these things will also come in. So I'll show you how to make all these adjustments. Let's add a section. If you add a section, you get something like this, then it becomes nicer. Okay, so the section, I can also disable the numbering. I can say star, and then I can disable the numbering. So if you add a section, then everything comes into place. All right. Now, if there's no section, if I was to remove the section here, then you see that it changes again. Okay, so here, what happens is the text itself is given some indent. And so it's up to you to do some modifications here as well. All right, so let's look at how we can deal with this issue. So if it's something like this, then you can simply just say slash no indents. All right, and then just run it. And then that text itself will also be aligned. It will start just from the left margin. All right. Now let's look at something else here, which we should look at. Now sometimes too, instead of the extreme left-hand side that you want, you still want it to be on the left-hand side, but you still want some spaces to appear just between the margin and then the table. So that means you may want to shift it, but not completely to the right. And so that to the left, by the way. So that means that what you want to introduce a space, some amount of space here. Okay, so that it shifts just slightly back to the right hand side here. And so if you want to add some space, then you can set the caption. You can just, from the caption setup, you can just say comma, and you can just say margin. All right, and so the margin, you can just say margin equals, and then you indicate the value. So I can say margin equals, let's say 10 pt, and if I run it, look at what happens. You see that the caption has shifted a bit. So you can use the margin to also make adjustments to the position of the caption. Okay, let's say 20. You can do it here. So that will shift itself. So you can see that it's shifting. I will just enlarge it here. All right. You can even say, let's say 30. Okay, so you can see that it's always shifting depending on how much value you place in there. All right, that's not all. The table itself, you can also shift it. And so if you want to shift the table itself to the right hand side a bit, you can add this just above this tabular environment. You can say /h space, and you indicate the space. So here I can say 0.7 cm. I'll run, and then you realize that the table has shifted a bit to the right. So you can also use this to make adjustments. So instead of going to the far left or to the center, or maybe sometimes leaning to the far right, you can use this spacing to change or make slight modifications to where the table is placed. All right, that's for the table H space, and then for the caption, the margin will also do the job. Now let's look at the situation here. Now with what we've done here, all right, I'll just do this here. With what we've done, the setting we have done here is going to affect all tables. Okay, so sometimes what you want to do is to just change this setting for just one table, while the rest of the tables have maybe the default settings. All right, now let's look at this situation. All right, I'm going to just make a copy of this table here again, just this table. Okay, I'll just make a copy of this table here. Okay, and then we will see what I'm talking about. So there's a copy of the table. Okay, here I'll just say my second table, and I'm going to run it. Now, if you look at this, you will realize that this table also is taking the same thing here, the same settings. But sometimes you may want just one of the tables to be affected, and then the others will have their own settings, like what we have in this document here. So if you look at this document, this LaTeX document here, this PDF, it's the same page, but then one table is left aligned and the other it's centered. So if you want to be able to do this customization for a particular table, then we need to include this. I will show you. We need to include the begin group. We need to group them, and so by grouping, it allows us to confine the settings to a particular group. Okay, so this allows us to customize the placements. I'll just go back. The begin and then the end group allows us to customize the settings for a particular table whilst leaving the rest with their own settings. And so if we want to get something like this, where we maintain one and then the other one we left aligned, then the one that we want to effect the new changes with, we have to put that in a group. And so in that case, just before you start that table and then even the caption settings, we have to say /begin group. Then just after we are done with that table, everything, we say /end group. All right. So now let's run this. If you run this now, you will see that this one has been affected, and then this one we still have it here. Now this table itself, we can just center it by bringing it here. In that particular table, we can just center this also. We can just say I'll just add something here, / you can even bring it /begin center, and then just after it we see /end center. Okay, let's run this. Good. So you can see now that we have one table on the left hand side, or with our custom alignment or placement, and then the other one is centered. All right, so this is what we do. So if you want the settings to affect just some tables, then you just bring your /begin group and then /end group, and you now customize. You indicate all the settings you want to make, or all the modifications you want to make, and then the settings are going to affect just the members within that particular group, which is here. So if you want a different setting, or you want a different settings to be applied to another table, then you just create another /begin group and an end group, and then you effect the changes within that group as well. All right. Now, so that's for the table. Now, the table itself, there are a couple of settings we can do, such as maybe aligning the text also to the left or right. There are things you can do, justifications, a lot of things, but these are things we are going to be covering in another tutorial as well. So for now, this is what we have with the table, okay, the left aligned table. And I want you to reproduce this video, and for those who want the LaTeX file for this document, I mean the code, you can check the description box. You'll find the link that you can use to download it. So that will be all for this tutorial, and then check my other tutorials on LaTeX tables.